All right, we're live. It's Wednesday night. It's youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. It's the Panther-Lair Show. I'm Chris Peak from Panther-Lair.com, hanging out with you, trying not to do too long of a promo, but we do like to give everybody a few minutes to roll in. Starting here at 8:30, because it seems like you guys like 8:30 better. I don't know why it is. I don't know what it is about the 8:30 show as opposed to the 8 o'clock show. Even when we do it at 8 o'clock, at 8:30, all of a sudden the viewer numbers go up. I don't get it. And the numbers seem to be better for the 8:30 show. Does 8:30 just work better for everybody? Is that I don't know. If you have thoughts on that, share them in the comments. Share them in the chat section, or whatever it may be. However you want to communicate. Either way, live Panther-Lair Show every Wednesday night, 8:30 to 9:30. Except next week, we're not going to have one of these live shows next week. I'm going on vacation next week. We'll have lots of video content for you at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com, and of course, we'll have lots of Pitt content for you at Panther-Lair.com, but we will not have a weekly, a Wednesday night live show. Not going to make Jim do it by himself, unless there's something extreme that causes me to feel compelled to do a live show from the beach. I don't think I'm going to do that, but who knows? I mean, I can't rule out the possibility of something crazy happening. My pen just died. This pen from the Element Hotels. I believe this was in Newark, New Jersey, from 2 years ago. This pen is dead. Most of my pens are from hotels. I should have another hotel pen laying around here somewhere. There we go. Where's this one from? Well, it's faded a bit, but it's a Fairfield. Let's check the Fairfield pen. There we go. Fairfield pen works. Always a quality one. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh, yes. Next week, we'll have a morning pit episode every day of the week. Got some good stuff planned for you. A little bit of a pre-planned, recorded content. So it won't exactly be breaking news, but it'll be stuff I think you'll enjoy. I think you'll like checking out the episodes of the morning pit next week, but we won't have the live show. Again, unless something really interesting and compelling happens, and I'll be like, yo, Jim, we got to go live and talk about this. And I will sit poolside, connected to the Wi-Fi through the beach house, and we'll talk about it. We'll see how that goes. That could be pretty that could be interesting for sure. But either way, that's the plan for next week. But we got a live show this week, and we have it tonight here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. So like this video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. You won't miss any of our pit video content. And of course, check out the website, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. Let's bring in our good friend Jim Hammett, who writes for us, writes with us at Panther-Lair.com. There we go. Got our proper video screen. Jim, what if you could make a percentage, what percentage of your ink pens would you say are from hotels? Do you do this too? Do you collect them?
So the last time I was at a hotel, I was at a wedding, and I went to go write the card. There wasn't a pen. Like I searched high and low in the hotel room. I couldn't find. So it was like the first time I went to a hotel, there wasn't even a pen to steal.
Do they not do that anymore? Do they not put pens in hotels? I mean,
I guess the Spring Hill Suites in Columbus did not. So
that's weak. Oh, Spring Hill Suites. You should definitely get something from a Spring Hill Suites.
I mean, it was a really nice hotel. Like they had a nice lobby bar, like everything, but not pens in the room. So it was very strange.
That's a Marriott property, right? I mean, Spring Hill Suites. See now, like this is quality. So this is a big Marriott pen. Like that's a good. But this one here, this is the one I wanted to get out. This is from the Palms Hotel, okay, in Las Vegas. The Palms. I think this trip might have been 15 years ago, and this SOB is still writing. That is a good hotel pen. I don't know if I have any other. This one's pretty faded. Anyway, hotel pens, you collect them, and then you just keep a good supply on hand. I tell you, the last thing about pens, I tell you who gives good pens, who has good pens, when you close on a house, when at a house sale, and they have those like closing companies that they need you to sign everything, and they bring like 5 pens, and they just leave them there. This is the good pen. I don't even know which company this is from, some law office, but this is a good pen. They got the touchscreen thing on the end for the but anyway, it's a good pen. But my Fairfield pen is still going strong. So anyway, that's it. Jim, you probably heard me say it there. Going on vacation next week. We're not going to have the live show. You get Wednesday night off. Will you do anything exciting or fun on that Wednesday night?
I don't know. I don't probably not. I don't know. Maybe,
July,
maybe, maybe,
July,
maybe. Now that I have that Wednesday off, I'll look for something to do. See if there's a show that night. Maybe the Pirates play. I don't know.
July 10th. What could be going on? They're coming up. Well, they're not at the All-Star break yet, right? That's still like 2 weeks away.
Yeah, so maybe they're in town. They were winning last I saw. So
Well, might be worth checking out. I don't know if are there a lot of shows in Johnstown on a Wednesday night?
no, they're more of a weekend thing. Well, when we get done, there is a bar in Johnstown. Every Wednesday night they do something called Jam Night. Just kind of people play music, you kind of hang out. So probably whenever we get done with this, I'm going to go to Jam Night. So maybe next week I'll go to Jam Night early.
Yeah, see who starts the show. Is it like a open mic type of thing?
Yeah.
Okay, that's kind of fun. Take a little so take something to bang on. Take a pot or a pan, and or do you have a drum? Do you have a hand drum?
I think there's one there, like because they usually have like one guy that kind of like runs the Jam Night, and he kind of plays with everybody. So there's all kinds of instruments.
That sounds fun. What's the bar? Where's Jam Night?
It's called Dively's.
Dively's. Okay. All right. Well, Johnstown fans, Johnstown listeners, if you want to hang out with Jim tonight, you can go to Dively's and see what's going on at Jam Night. All right, so it's been an interesting week. A couple of commitments on Monday, right? I mean, that was a pretty big day for Pitt on Monday, getting the 3 commitments. I think by mid-morning, we had a pretty good idea Pitt was going to land all 3 guys, Josh Gurrier and Cole Woodson and Denham Cook. But still, by the end of the day, I think Pitt fans were actually kind of excited about recruiting again. Did you get that sense that like there was a bit of malaise through May and maybe even part of June, but a day like that, that's a real bolt of energy back into the fan base. Did you pick up on that? Did you get that sense?
I did. I thought like those 3 commitments right there. I think just because they were all good wins, I think all 3 players are pretty good, and I think everyone kind of recognized that. And they were also, recruiting wins over schools you want to beat. Like, you got Josh Gurrier over Iowa, you got Cole Woodson over Virginia Tech. I think Denham Cook was Virginia, Indiana. So they were all like Power 5 guys. So I go back and forth with this class, and I think a lot of people do. And I think it's pretty good. I think, everyone's concerns mostly are with the offensive line recruiting, which I understand. I kind of have my questions about that as well. But I mean, when you look at the defense, like all the guys they're bringing in are like the kind of guys they have been bringing in, and they usually have a good defense. So I think they're recruiting very well on that side of the ball, specifically secondary. I mean, I think that's a great haul they're bringing in. So yeah, I think, that was the end of the run of June. I mean, I think they had 29 visitors. 21 of them are committed, and we're kind of only really waiting on 2 more. So I mean, we talked so long about, oh wow, they're not bringing in that many official visitors. They only have 7 guys this week and 7 guys next week, and usually they have 20 guys there. And all of a sudden, it's like they got exactly who they brought in and who they wanted.
Yeah, it's funny how it changed around to me because they had been bringing in such big groups of official visitors, and they would only get a few of them. But so it was a low percentage, but because they brought so many guys, they ended up with like still sort of the same number of recruits. Whereas this year they brought in smaller groups, and we kept questioning it. But then they had like a really high hit rate, which sort of was reminiscent of like what Pat Narduzzi was getting, his first few years here. They had like 85% hit rate the first couple of years of the Narduzzi era on official visits. That percentage went down when they started bringing in these big June official visit classes or official visit groups. But now it goes back up. There's a question here about, Epic Steel 8 asks about who's the next big recruit Pitt could get to commit. And we can talk about guys who are still out on the board, guys who are still yet to visit. I think Jordan Fields, the offensive tackle, is one we're keeping an eye on, a guy who took an official visit, and we think Pitt's got a really good chance to land. Is there anybody else? We mentioned there's 8 guys that visited who have not committed to Pitt. A few of them have committed elsewhere. How many guys are still left on the board from the visits? Like 3, maybe?
3, and probably 2 of them are realistic that have spots. I think, Bryson Williams, Jordan Fields, they would want. I think Madrid Tucker probably lost his spot to some of the other receivers in the class. So, I mean, I think we're really only waiting on Bryson Williams, Jordan Fields, and I think they're both deciding around July 11th. So, another week until those decisions are made. But I mean, I think they're still going to do some work in this class. I think they're still going to try to get a few more guys. I don't know. I'm sure you feel the same way. I think they need another defensive tackle. You know, we've heard rumors that they might try to get a second quarterback in the class. So while they did a lot of work and the bulk of the class is done, and, you know, obviously you have to hang on to them, I still think there's going to be some, you know, maybe some recruiting throughout the season, which we haven't seen a ton of lately.
So that was kind of leading into my question is like, there are no other defensive tackles who visited, you know, and they got 2 defensive ends. I think those were those the only ends? There was a kid who went to Syracuse, right? He was a defensive end, right? Gillians.
Yeah.
So they kind of got all the defensive linemen more or less. I don't know how I just thumbs up. I didn't need a thumbs up, but I don't know, maybe it was the Fairfield pen. They more or less got just about everybody they brought in for an official visit as far as defensive linemen. It's kind of concerning and surprising that was all they brought in. And I think we talked about this at different points over the past couple weeks, but is it surprising to you that they really didn't bring anybody else in? And when I look through the offer sheet, there's not a lot of options, particularly defensive tackle. There's not a lot of options that are still out there for them to get if they want to bring guys in for like a fall official visit, like you talked about, which is not something they typically like to do. I just don't see a lot of options right now. Do you?
I really don't. So, I mean, if they're going to bring in another defensive lineman, it's probably going to be, you know, maybe somebody that camped that doesn't have an offer that they're kind of, you know, stringing along, or, you know, maybe there's just some new guys that they're going to have to offer. But, you know, we talk a lot about last year's class. I mean, I think they brought in 5 recruits on the defensive line and probably 4 transfers. So like that's 9 new defensive linemen on the roster this year. So, I mean, that was a big overhaul, but I don't know. I thought they probably could have brought in another one to play for this upcoming season. So I think that's an evolving spot. I think they kind of need to rebuild it. So I kind of expected more than just 3, but I mean, I think the 3 that they got are pretty good. I mean, I think, you know, some of the guys that were committed before, you know, June, you know, you don't talk about them as much. You know, you're always looking for the new commitments, but like Trevor Summers is really good. Like he was like one of like St. Thomas Aquinas' best players. And that's like one of the best high schools in Florida. So I think he really fits this defense. And so I don't know. I mean, they had a big class last year and 3 this year. So they could get away with 3, but I think they might try to go for 4.
I feel like they have to. I mean, like you look at the recruiting classes of like 21, 22, 23, I think they have 2 guys from each of those classes. Total defensive linemen, not just talking about ends or tackles, but total defensive linemen, 2 guys from each of those classes left on the roster. I mean, there are some significant holes in defensive line recruiting over the past 4 years. And, you know, they got like, there's the high-end guys, which are great. Francis Brew and Jasir Whittington and Isaiah Neal and Sincere Edwards. And that's great. But like, that's not enough. I mean, you need to fill it in. And even, I mean, you talk about the 4 transfers they brought in, but 2 of those guys are in their final year of eligibility. So, you know, even going down the road, you're still going to need to backload it. And I just, you know, because now there's also the change in the official or in the signing day rule, right? Where signing day is going to be the Wednesday right after the regular season, the first Wednesday in December, as opposed to the third Wednesday in December, which means you're going to have even less time for those official visits. The staff doesn't like to do official visits during the fall, but if you don't do them then, you're not going to be able to do them at all. And that it's going to make it really, really difficult to get guys that you can sign. Like it almost feels, and this is probably one of the downsides of, you know, we applaud them for getting such a high percentage of the official visitors in June. One of the downsides is like, well, you don't have a lot of guys to continue pursuing. You know what I mean? Like you got 21 out of 29. That's great. And maybe you'll end up with 22 or even 23 out of 29. But of the other 6, 3 or 4 are already committed. The other 2 aren't really like you didn't leave yourself any extra guys to work with. And maybe you didn't anticipate that you wouldn't have any room for official visits in December, but you didn't leave yourself a lot of extra options there. And I'm not sure what you can do. I mean, those fall official visits are really unideal or almost undesirable, but you don't have any other options, right? There's nowhere else you can kind of bring these guys in if you're going to try and land them. So I don't know. I have a hard time seeing how this situation resolves itself with them actually getting as many defensive linemen as they probably need.
Here's a trivia question for you. Do you remember the last prospect they hosted during the season for an official visit?
Sam Okunlola?
It was.
Yeah, buddy.
And it
I
was
knew
the
he
Western
did.
Michigan game. Like they
Was it
lost.
Western Michigan?
It was a deflating loss to Western Michigan, and the kids still picked Pitt. So I
He
don't
sure
know.
did.
I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
anymore, like you look at like you walk around the building all the time. There's a million people that are recruiting assistant, director of player. There's like a million people on their support staff, so they can get away with doing these official visits while the coaches, spend game day with the team and try to meet up with them later. So, maybe initially, whenever your recruiting staff was a little bit smaller, but they have so many guys that they can host on these official visits, and if they need a player host, take one of the guys that's injured and like have him show them around. So I mean, there's ways to get around it now. So I think like you said, I mean, now that they're signing right after the season, it's kind of necessary. Or I mean, I guess the February signing period's still a thing. They got 2 guys last year, so
Yeah. Maybe moving signing day to the first week of December, maybe that creates a sort of refocused emphasis on February. Maybe more guys who wouldn't be ready. Maybe they're not ready to sign in the first week of December. They only took one official visit in June, and they were planning on taking a couple in December. Now, maybe they hold off. Maybe there are more recruits available going into February, and maybe that's how you finish your class now, as opposed to that mad dash of the first 3 weeks of December. Now, maybe you finish your class by doing it in February. Which, I mean, I wouldn't hate having a little extra. I don't want to call it drama, but some extra interesting things to talk about on the February signing day. That'd be fun, right? I wouldn't mind that.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of miss that day, and like now, like February 6th rolls around, and you're like, oh, like it's nothing. Like the class is done, and I don't know. I mean, like sometimes like whenever like Pat Narduzzi talks, like he's actually like somewhat forward thinking, like more than you would expect. And I think in the past he's suggested like, why not let's just do a September 1st signing day? So and that way you don't have to hold on to your guys the whole way to December. You know who your class is. Then if the coach leaves or whatever, you let them go and they're out of their commitments. But like, what if these guys could sign September 1st? It wouldn't feel like so daunting that, yeah, you have to recruit more and you have to recruit their own guys that are already committed. So I don't know if it'll ever get to that point, but I mean, I don't think it's a bad idea.
Yeah. Yeah, the other thing too with the fall official visits, as I think about it, and as we were talking about it, and I've kind of thought about this too, is like you're right about the recruiting staff getting bigger, but so much of it, I think, so much of the impression of the official visit is created through like the interaction with the players, and I think you miss that quite a bit because even like you mentioned, like an injured guy, I mean, they're still, I mean, Pat Narduzzi, he's still going to expect them to be in the team hotel on Friday night. And that's not what you're supposed to do on an official visit on a Friday night, is like sit in a hotel downtown, and so getting the whole like experience of being a student, because I think that's one of Pitt's big selling points, and it should be. And I think we've talked about this before of like, well, those other 358 days in the calendar, like where you have to live in Pittsburgh or you have to live in State College or you have to live in Blacksburg. Like, do you want to be there? Do you want to be a citizen of that place? Do you want to live there? And that you get the sense of that during an official visit that doesn't have anything to do with a game day weekend. I mean, Pitt has to emphasize those other 358 days because the 7 game days are a total crapshoot on what kind of experience that's going to be, whether it's the weather, it's the crowd, or it's the outcome of the game. I mean, you really can't control any of those things, but you can control what happens for a kid on the weekend in June or a weekend in December, weather notwithstanding. So it's just tough. And now maybe that helps. Maybe that helps schools hold on to their commitments if the official visit that kid takes to another school in late November is not nearly as cool as it would have been in the second week of December because he can't be around the players as much. But yeah, I'm all for an early signing day too. I have even said, I think like July 1st, like you get through the official visits. All right. You visit a bunch of schools, sign the paper, like you want to go here, fine, go here, sign the paper. It'd be interesting. I don't think everybody would sign. I think a lot of kids would hold out, but I would be all for it. Although usually by the time we get to the end of June, I kind of want to break a little bit. I don't necessarily want to, but then again, we get to the, first, second, or third week of December, and I kind of want to break then too. So it's, there's not an ideal time in terms of our workload, but yeah, I would say a summer signing date and a winter signing date. Do it. I mean, basketball does it, right? They have a fall and a spring signing day. Mm-hmm. So why can't I can't really see a good reason why football wouldn't be able to do it, before their season and after their season. Again, like you said, with the caveat that you can let guys out if there's, a coaching change, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, it helps you paint that picture of like, okay, like I don't have to hang on to these 20 guys. I at least know maybe not all 20 of them signed, but like 10 of them do. So like you're like, okay, I know I have a couple receivers. I know I have like this and that. So I think it just helps everyone. And I don't see why they have to wait till December. I don't know who that is benefiting really. I mean, I guess before it used to be February, so it's a little bit better, but like I don't see the point if a basketball recruit can sign the first week of September, why can't a football recruit?
Yep, I agree. All right. I was talking about trying to not work during vacation. Voodoo IPA says, "Boo! I have to work when I rarely get vacation." Well, I mean, our vacations are a little different. I mean, what did you do on your vacation, Jim?
Worked. Wrote about official visits and such. Interviews.
You just happen to be close to an ocean, right? Isn't that what you said? You were like, I just consider it that I'm working by the ocean now, or something.
Yeah, I think you're like, why don't you like take a break? I'm like, it's fine. I'm sitting by the pool working. It's okay.
I have been writing so much stuff. Like I didn't load it yet, so you haven't seen it. Like I have, our position preview of the defensive tackles. That's all those are done. I just have to put them in. I've been working on trying to get these morning Pitt episodes. I mean, like really trying to like not get my family angry at me because I'm sitting on my laptop all week next week. This is really my goal. I'm still going to be on there. I'm going to be on the message boards. I can't help it, but I'm going to try to minimize it. Josh Newark thinks you should do your own show next week and take people on a tour of Johnstown. Where would you show them? Like the incline or something, or what would you do?
Yeah, I think incline would be good. Actually, tomorrow I am covering a baseball game. They're doing like a big fireworks symphony show right after the baseball game, so that's kind of a big deal in Johnstown.
Oh, that's cool.
I guess I would take them to Dively's because next week would be Wednesday, so I would take them to Jam Night.
Jam Night, yeah.
Catch a couple songs, do the incline plane, hit some hot spots.
Wonder if you had to check with the artists if they'd be okay with you live streaming their performance.
Yeah, they might be asking Panther-Lair for royalties.
Yeah, right. And we don't have that. Wolf HD says, do you have any input on 4-star tackle? What do we agree on how to pronounce it? Chaston Brown? He has Pitt in his top 4, but I've seemingly never heard anything about him as a potential recruit. Well, we talked about him a little bit when it was a possibility that he was going to take an official visit to Pitt. That kind of popped up. We were able to confirm that he did plan to take an official visit to Pitt. And then we were able to confirm that he did not take his official visit to Pitt. I would say once that visit got canceled, he kind of slid off of my radar. I don't know about you, Jim. Are you still sort of monitoring that situation? Do you see anything from him lately?
Not really, and I don't even think he visited anywhere else, like in place of Pitt. So like I think like when there was still a chance that we thought he visited, he probably thought I was crazy because I was texting him. I was like, "Hey man, you want to talk about your official visit? It'll only be like 3 minutes, quick interview." And it just like said red.
Like yeah, he left you on red.
He left you on red. So I think it was like Maryland, Georgia Tech, Central Florida, something like that. So I would guess one of those schools, not Pitt.
Yeah. Josh Newark brings up, since you guys couldn't wait 3 extra minutes last week for Bub Carrington, could you both touch on Bub in Washington and Blake Hinson in Los Angeles? Yeah. So, I mean, we sat here and talked about the NBA draft so much last week, more than we have ever talked about the NBA draft on this show combined. Like if you added up every minute ever spoken about the NBA draft on the live Panther-Lair show, it would not equal the amount of time we spent last week. We click to log off. It's like 9:31 or 9:32, whatever time it is. And literally like you and I are chatting for a few minutes after, and literally like within 90 seconds of ending the stream, Bub Carrington got drafted by the Washington Wizards. I was like, are you serious? Like really, like right after we got done. So lottery pick, close to home, close to Pittsburgh. I mean, I'm sure there could be a better place for him to land, but I really can't think of where it would be. I know they're in a rebuild and they're terrible, but like, hey, you get to go be part of a rebuild, which means if you stink, it's okay. Everybody stinks. So there's, maybe the expectation is a little lower. But what would you think of that? And what are your thoughts on that a week later?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's pros and cons to it. Obviously, close to home, chance to play because it's not a very good team. Like he's going to probably be able to walk in and get some minutes right away. But yeah, I mean, the Wizards are like a horrible franchise. Like that's like getting drafted by like the Pirates or something. Like it's like a perpetual loser. But I don't know. I mean, I think it's a good fit for him. It's a young team. The number 2 pick is drafted too. So I mean, like they're going to grow up together, and they seem, I think they had to trade up to get him, or he was. We kind of like were arguing about like the Blazers Wizards who was 14, but I mean they wanted him, and we heard that going into the draft that there were teams that really like Bub. He was probably going to go in that 12 to 20 range. There might be a team to trade up and get him, and I mean more or less that's kind of what happened with him. So I mean the same things we've said about him all along are still true. He's young. There's probably he's a little raw, as far as the NBA goes, but there's a lot of talent there. There's a lot of upside there. So I think it's a good fit for him. And, I'm happy for him that, he landed in the lottery, because whenever he first declared, nobody was really sure where he would go. But I think Jeff Capel made some calls, and, just the NBA draft is so much on potential. Like it's like he's young. He's a good shooter. That's what they're looking for. He's 19 whenever the season starts. I mean, sometimes you draft the upside more than the best player, and that's kind of what happened with him.
And I think we would have said, oh, it was great decision, great move, great success, even if he ended up in the bottom half of the first round, right? Like, I don't even think him being a lottery pick, I don't think anybody was like, oh, well, as long as he's a lottery pick, then that was a good decision. I don't even think anybody said that. I think it was just like, well, if he gets drafted, but I don't think there was ever any doubt that he would get drafted. I think it was like, as long as he's the first round pick, then yeah, that was a great decision. And he ends up going in the lottery. I think, like you said, it's all on potential, but I think he showed a lot in terms of not just potential, but where he's at already this past season. Will you watch over under 4.5 Washington Wizards games next year because of Bub Carrington?
I'm guessing under, because I can't imagine they're on national TV all that much.
Fair.
But if I happen to be flipping through the channels and the Wizards are on, I'm going to be more interested. I mean, even this past year, like the NBA guys for Pitt were like Champagny got some minutes for the Wizards, and Mo Gee played for I forget who even he played with, and Steven Adams was hurt all year, so like there wasn't like a Pitt NBA presence. So if Bub's playing and they're on TV, I'm going to watch.
I guess we should probably start a running thread on the message board, right? Like Wizards updates. We'll all be we can all be Wizards fans now. I guess, right? I mean, I've never really had an NBA team. Maybe I'll pick the Wizards. Maybe I'll be a Wizards guy. Or go ahead.
I was going to say, do you like them better whenever they were the Bullets?
I liked Gilbert Arenas. I was always a big a Gilbert Arenas guy. I don't know why. I always liked him. The Bullets, I don't know. Probably not. Didn't really care.
Yeah.
That didn't really like move the needle for me when they changed that name. I was like, oh, whatever. It doesn't matter. But yeah, maybe I'll adopt the Wizards because I mean, I'm not going to adopt the Lakers, right? I mean, like you're not going to take the Lakers with Blake, even though, you love Blake and, great guy. He's a lot of fun to watch, but I mean, you're not going to become a Lakers fan, right?
Probably not. I mean, do you think Blake is the most hyped rookie for the Los Angeles Lakers?
I haven't heard him talk about anybody else. I mean, everything I've been reading, like people are talking a lot about the Lakers rookies, and I mean, most of it seems to be centered around Blake, right? That's what I assume. I haven't really read the articles too much, but I think that's what everybody's talking about, isn't it?
Yeah, actually, their first pick, Dalton Knecht from Tennessee. I saw he's number 4, so his nickname is now Knecht 4, which is great.
Knecht 4.
Yeah,
that's good.
That's a really good NBA nickname. So
he missed a good NIL opportunity. He could have gone to UConn, and they could have like Connecticut. You know what I mean? Like, but I like Knecht 4 better though. That's good.
Yeah, that's a good fit. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen with Blake. I mean, the NBA or the Lakers with LeBron on the team, like he's kind of the GM. So like if Blake makes a bunch of threes at practice, he might just be like, all right, you're on the big squad. You're not doing the G League this year. So hopefully Blake has a good summer league showing. I mean, the guy could shoot. I mean, he was awesome these past 2 years. I think he's a fan favorite in Pittsburgh for life. I mean, so everyone's going to be pulling for him. But, as we've seen with guys that sign these two-way deals, the Justin Champagnes, Mo Gees, it's a lot of up and downs. You got to find the right situation. So I don't know if LA is the right situation, but I know shooting travels. And if he can hit his shots and he has NBA range, then he might find a place in this league.
When JJ Redick hired before or after the draft? Is that after? Was that last Monday? No, that would have been before the draft.
Yeah,
because I'm just like, Duke guys are weird, man. You know, the brotherhood and all this stuff. Like, I hope he doesn't hold it against Blake. The whole like getting up on the table thing. You know what I mean? Like,
well, at the same time, someone also said on the message boards, like proposed, like maybe Capel, kind of got that in the works because he's the Duke
that's
brotherhood.
true. That's
So
true.
there's two different ways the Duke brotherhood can go.
Yeah, that would make sense, I guess. I don't know. It'd be fun. I hope Blake makes it because if Blake makes it, he'll end up on like Sports Center at least once every 2 weeks. You know what I mean? Like just making some ridiculous, maybe once a week, making some ridiculous logo shot. Like I don't see Blake, you don't see Blake changing his game, right? Like he's going to be Blake because that's all he knows how to do is be Blake. And so, it'll be a blast if he can go to the NBA and try to do the things that he did at Pitt. I think it would be fantastic to watch. But yeah, I'm probably going to stick with the Wizards, and the Wizards will be my team. This is exciting. I've never really had an NBA team. Now I think it's going to be the Wizards. I'll have to tell the kids in the morning, hey guys, we're Wizards fans now. So this will be fun. We'll get some Wizards shirts and we'll become Wizards fans. We'll follow the Wizards this year. I'm going to rename it Wizard-Lair. That's going to be the new, I'm going to start a new Twitter feed, Wizard-Lair, and it's just going to be like, it's not going to be Wizard updates. It's just going to be Bub Carrington updates.
Yeah, just
so
all Bub.
We'll do a segment each week on the live show of updating the Wizards. Man, I wish the NBA season started tomorrow so I would not forget this idea by the time the season actually started. But anyway, what's that?
I was going to say, like, text Steven now, be like, hey man, you also have to do like cut up like Wizards highlights.
I don't know if we need to go that far, but we can text about it though. We can text about the Wizards. That's always fun. Let's see. There's some Josh Newark says, as a kid of the 80s, you weren't a Magic, Bird, or Jordan fan. Sure. I mean, yeah, I was like a Bulls fan like everybody else because we all loved Jordan. I mean, like, yeah, I grew up in the age where like when you played on like a basketball team and everybody had to go grab their jerseys, like everybody scrambled for the 23. Like everybody wanted 23. Like I still appreciate that LeBron is young enough and Sam Young and those guys that like you wore 23 because you believed you were the best guy on the court. And like sometimes you would defer. You'd be like, no, man, you take 23. It's cool. It's cool. Because like, you're better than me. So you should have 23. Yeah, very much so. But I didn't really have a team. You know what I got? I got from a cereal box, you could mail in proofs of purchase and get a free like satin NBA jacket. I feel like I either requested the Warriors, but they were out, so they sent me the Pacers, or I requested the Pacers, but they were out, so they sent me the Warriors. I feel like I ended up with the Pacers, and I was disappointed. I was like, man, I wanted the Warriors. I don't know why I wanted the Warriors, but I wanted the Warriors. So yeah, I never really had a team. Did you have a team? Were you a Sixers fan or something? Or
I mean, like as a kid, I was like in the era of like I liked Allen Iverson, like Tracy McGrady, like early 2000s NBA, and right now I say I'm a Knicks fan. Like I've kind of been cheering for them for years, and a lot of that was because like I went to the Big East tournament when I was like a little kid, and like the Madison Square Garden was the first like NBA arena I was ever in, so I just kind of like adopted the Knicks. But yeah, like I was of the era, like I had the T-Mac shoes and the Iverson questions. I had all of those. So yeah, nice. I was early 2000s NBA back when the scores were 84-79.
Yeah, good times. Josh also says the Lakers struggled with threes, so I think Blake has a great shot to stay in the association. We'll see. Hopefully he does. We'll be pulling for him. Showtime. The Blakers. Oh, you like that?
That is
the Blakers.
Nobody said that yet.
Has that really?
Yeah, I think.
Did I just come up with that? The Blakers? That's fantastic. Okay, see, again, I got to write down. I'm a Wizards fan and Blakers. I'm going to use my Fairfield pen to write about being a Wizards fan and the Blakers. All right. Epic Steel 8 wants to know if you had to give Pitt a record at this moment, what would it be? I also read something about us being in the Holiday Bowl against Washington. What's your thoughts on that? My thought on that is that bowl projections in July are more ridiculous than bowl projections in September, which are pretty ridiculous to begin with. But your first question about the record, I think we talk about this probably from time to time, Jim, but where are you at right now? Somebody asked me today what record Pitt fans should expect. I think it was some radio station in Iowa or someplace. I gave an answer, but where are you at right now, record-wise? You've been thinking a lot about this team, just like I have, as we do all these position previews. Have you talked yourself into 9 wins yet?
No, I'm kind of like hanging around 7-5, which, a 4-win turnaround would be welcomed after last year's debacle. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's still the ACC. I think there's, I trust that the league is going to have more parity than like maybe Pitt's going to like make this huge turnaround. Like I think, you could the ACC just kind of knock each other around, and sometimes you go 3-9, and sometimes you go 7-5. But I think Pitt's due for an upswing. I mean, I think the defense is still going to be pretty good. I think the offense has no choice or nowhere to go but up. So, and I think the schedule is fairly forgiving. There's, we talk about like what games are you really afraid of? Clemson's tough, Louisville's tough, but like nothing's like you don't play any like top 10 teams. So I mean, like everything's on the table. So I'm at 7-5, I think.
Yeah, my answer when somebody asked me like what record should Pitt fans expect, I said that I think they would. I think they'll end up 8-5. Whether that's going 7-5 in the regular season and winning a bowl, or going 8-4 in the regular season and losing a bowl, I think they'll end up 8-5. They'll get back to a bowl game, and be right around there. It just comes back to the quarterback, right? I mean, it's just about whether the quarterback play improves. And I mean, it's a brand new offense, so you have to find out if the new offense is going to work. But not to sidetrack too far, but sort of connected to this conversation, I was in a message board discussion today talking about the run defense. And I think there is a pretty strong consensus that Pitt's run defense was bad last year. Everybody knows Pitt's run defense wasn't good last year, but what my message board presupposes is maybe it wasn't that bad. I calculated, and I don't know if you saw this post, it doesn't matter, I'm going to say it anyway for people who didn't see it. I calculated like last year, rushing yardage, removing sacks and sack yardage, right? So getting as close as we can to just the yards gained and lost on rushing attempts. If you compare that to 2022, they actually allowed fewer yards per carry this past season than they did in 22. The biggest difference, and Pat Narduzzi and Randy Bates pointed this out, and I think there's a few reasons why this is the case, opponents ran the ball 130 times more, or 130 more times. It wasn't like times 130 more times last season than they did in 2022, despite playing one fewer game. And Randy Bates and Pat Narduzzi suggested, I think Narduzzi said this, I don't think Bates would say this, but Narduzzi suggested that teams ran the ball, not necessarily because they thought they could have success, but because they weren't afraid of Pitt's offense. That whether they were only up by a touchdown or even if they were losing, they didn't really play with a whole lot of urgency because they weren't worried that Pitt was ever going to score enough to make it a real competitive game. So they could run the ball a lot. And that's actually accurate. The Pitt opponents ran the ball more last year, again, in a 12-game season, than Pitt's opponents ran in 2022 when they played 13 games, and more last year than they ran it in 2021 when they played 14 games. So you have West Virginia with 51 carries, Virginia Tech with 59, Syracuse ran the ball 65 times. And again, Cincinnati and Syracuse, I think, were bad games, for the run defense. On the whole, though, I mean, they gave up 80 yards on the ground to Louisville. Duke had 77 yards. Even Florida State had 138. That's not that much. West Virginia had 151 yards. They ran the ball 51 times. Carolina had 77 yards on the ground. I don't think, and maybe you were already here on this, maybe you already felt this way, but I don't think the run defense was actually that bad. Teams just ran it a lot. So even if you're only averaging 3 yards per carry, if you run the ball 60 times, you get 180 yards. It looks like you had a lot of success running the ball. You know what I mean?
No, I'm with you. And I think a lot of the defensive deficiencies last year were probably a lot to blame on the offense. I mean, there were games where Pitt would barely even get 10 first downs. So they're on the field a lot. And like you said, teams just weren't afraid of their offense. So you could just pound the ball away. So, I mean, I think what sticks in people's heads is like that Syracuse game where they just that was the first time I've ever seen like Pitt just get physically beat up in the run game, like up and down the field. Like that doesn't happen against, Pat Narduzzi defense. So yeah. I think that left a, bad taste in everyone's mouth. But like by and large, I didn't think the defense was all that bad last year. It's just like they kind of had to be perfect. And it's, they were good. They weren't as good as the year before, like their defense. So like that's what made it tough. Like they had enough guys to like kind of hold things together, like the Marquez Williams, like the veteran guys that have played through it, but like they didn't have any star players last year. I mean, from 22 to 23, they lost, Cansey, Dennis, Hill, Hallett, like they lost their strength right up the middle. So I think that hurt them. But by and large, I didn't think the defense was why they lost 9 games last year. It wasn't.
No.
It was the offense.
It was the quarterback. It was the quarterback. Quarterback was terrible. That's why they lost. Period. Point blank. Like you don't need to be like, well, there was also this. Like punting didn't matter. Run defense didn't matter. Like none of those things mattered. The quarterback is what did it. The quarterback is why they only won 3 games. That's what it is. Voodoo IPA wants some fireworks, so I'll give him some fireworks. Says his neighbors are. Oh no, I shot the lasers at him. Darn it! Which one was the fireworks? 2 thumbs up. Is that what it was? There it is. There it is. Good. We got the fireworks. Mine keeps messing up and only doing the thumbs up. So Voodoo IPA says my neighbors are disappointing me with lack of fireworks. How about some? So there you go. Paul Sebastian wants to know, with the addition of the West Coast teams in the ACC, we always hear of trips across the country affecting the team traveling. Do you see this happening? I feel like when that gets talked about, it gets talked about mostly with the West Coast team traveling to the East Coast, more so than the East Coast. You know what I mean? Because you're moving back in time, so to speak, right? Like you're playing a game at noon, which is what feels like 9 a.m. for you. So we'll see if that ends up having an impact on Cal and Stanford when they make those trips. I don't know. They haven't announced. Pitt has what? Cal at home, right? They don't have a start time for that one yet, do they?
No, not yet.
Okay. It'll be interesting to see if they try to accommodate Cal and Stanford when they travel across the country and give them 3:30 games. You know what I mean? When they go on the road, basically to anybody else in the ACC. It'd be interesting to see if they try to accommodate at least a little bit and not give them too many noon games, or give them Thursday night games or something, or like I say, like 3:30 games or primetime games. I don't know if they would try to go out of their way. It's only 2 teams, but they're obviously going to be traveling a lot. So I don't know. I wonder if I could probably go in and look and see if Cal and Stanford have any game times announced just yet, but I'm not going to do that right now. If you want to look that up, you can. But I don't know. You have any thoughts on traveling across the country?
I kind of just want to see like one college football season like this. Like I need to see like what USC at Rutgers looks like and Stanford at Duke. I need to see just how it all plays out and how it looks. Like I don't know how it's going to affect teams travel wise. Like I don't know if you're going to have to like go maybe a day or 2 earlier than you normally would travel for an away game. Like I don't know. I mean, I just kind of want to see how this whole thing looks, and it's probably going to look really stupid, and we should probably just be doing normal conferences again, but I don't know. I mean, Chris, are you a video game fan? Like, are you going to play the NCAA football video game?
We don't have a system that would support that. We have like some old Xbox that doesn't turn on anymore, and the kids have a Nintendo Switch. So it would take a significant amount of purchases for me to get to that point. So,
but I guess in the new game, you can like create the conferences you want, and like there's an option just to go back to like the normal conferences.
Oh, like really?
You could just recreate the Pac-12 if you want
to. Okay. Like, is that like, do you have to do that manually, or do you think you can just pick a button that says like, fix this crap?
Yeah. Like, I wonder if there's just like a revert back to 2005 button.
Oh, if you could like pick the year. Yeah, that would be awesome.
I don't know. They should. That would be great.
All right, just glancing over schedules here really quickly. Cal only has a couple of game times announced, but week 2 they play at Auburn, and that game is 3:30 Eastern, so it's 12:30 Pacific time. And then they have a Friday night game at Wake Forest, which is obviously it's an 8:00 game. So those are the only game times they have announced so far. Stanford has a bunch of game times. They play at Syracuse again on a Friday night, so that's 7:30 local time, 4:30 Stanford time. They play at Notre Dame, which is a 12:30 Pacific time. So, again, giving them that 3:30 slot, so they're not going to play at 9:30 in the morning. And they have a game. Does Stanford know they went to the ACC? Because they have a game in the final week of the regular season playing at San Jose State. and it's a 1:00 game Pacific time. What the hell is going on? Oh, it's a Friday. Oh, it's the day after Thanksgiving. All right, that makes a little more sense, but actually it doesn't make sense of why they're playing at San Jose State.
No, why is it not San Jose State at Stanford? Because I just thought about, there's 17 teams, so like one team doesn't have a Thanksgiving game.
Right. Is San Jose State, are they FBS?
Yeah.
Are they?
West,
okay.
West.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I mean, that's like the equivalent of like a home and home with like Ohio or Western Michigan or something. All right, I get that. Okay. That makes sense. So yeah, so I mean, of the games that are scheduled so far, they mostly gave them primetime games, or 3:30 Eastern time slots. So they're not making them play a 9 a.m. Pacific game yet, but both teams have a lot of TBAs left. Stanford's at Clemson, they're at North Carolina State, and that's it actually of the games that are not announced yet. I don't know about Cal, what else Cal has, but yeah, that'll be interesting to watch to see if they kind of screw with their schedules a little bit that way. But that would be the most interesting part of it, would be seeing if they like what they do there. Wolf HD says, is there a chance Eli Holstein straight up beats out Nate Yarnell for quarterback, or do you think Yarnell is locked in starter? I think there's a chance. I don't think anything's written in pen yet. I don't think anything is sharpied or written in Fairfield pen. I think it's very much a possibility. I wouldn't put it as a likelihood. I wouldn't give it better than 50% chance, but I would certainly say it's a non-zero chance, right?
Yeah, I go back to the spring because I don't think he ever announced that Yarnell was a starter, but I think in like one of like these summer interviews with Narduzzi, like someone asked him like, so what, why do you think it was important to name Nate Yarnell the starter? And I was like, So and he kind of answered it like he was. So I mean, I'd go again with, I'm like 98% sure Nate Yarnell's going to start the first game of the season, but I mean, I guess there's a chance Holstein can beat him out, but very, very, very unlikely, I would say.
Yeah, you're probably right, but a non-zero chance. I'm not going to rule it out. I mean, it's particularly when you look at his ascension or ascent. I don't know which one would be appropriate throughout spring camp of moving up, moving past Christian Bayer, and putting himself into the number 2 spot. Just put spot and slot into the same word, splot. So that's a new one. I think it was somewhat expected he would pass Bayer. I think the coaches were kind of hoping that would happen. But still, to see him do it, and then the coaches have kind of gone out of their way to say that he was sort of hurt while he was passing Bayer. I don't know. I think the door is open there. Paul Sebastian followed up on the West Coast question, says, what are the chances that a team goes to the West Coast 2 times in a couple weeks span? I don't see that happening. I don't see actually any of the Eastern teams going to Cal and Stanford both in the same season. Like Pitt splits it this year, right? Pitt doesn't play Stanford this year.
Isn't the schedule out for like the next 10 years or something? Like I think they tried to avoid this.
Yeah. I think I don't think they're sending anybody to the I have Pitt's future schedules at least, but I don't think they're sending anybody to the West Coast twice in a season, let alone twice in the same in the span of a couple of weeks. They go to Stanford in 25. They don't play any of those teams in 26. Wait, really? Unless I didn't update this.
No, I think that, because you're supposed to play, like in a 4-year stretch, you're supposed to play or a 3-year stretch or something. You're supposed to be able to play every team. So I don't know.
Right.
It's not like a guarantee that you have to play like Stanford in a year.
Stanford. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So they don't play any of them in 26. In 27, they host SMU and Cal. 28, they go to Cal. 29, they host Stanford. 2030, they go to Stanford. So, yeah, I think probably I think that was probably a goal for the ACC, was not to send anybody to the West Coast twice in the same season. So, let alone, to Paul's question, a couple weeks. Josh Newark says, does Rodney Hammond average 20 carries per game this season with more offensive plays and hopefully a better OC? My instinct is no. That's my gut reaction, is no, he doesn't average 20 carries per game. What do you think, Jim?
I would say probably not. And that's not to say, like, I think he's going to get more run than he did last year. But I think they're going to rotate guys. I mean, I think Desmond Reed's going to be part of the offense. They're going to throw the ball a lot. So I can't just see them turning around and handing it off to Hammond 20 times a game.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I don't know, either because I think they'll use a committee, they'll spread the ball around. I just don't see it happening. Voodoo IPS says, thoughts on the SMU news today. Can they be booted from the ACC? So I think what he's talking about is this. I believe I can share the screen. Wait, hold on. This. Do you assume that, can you see that tweet, Jim?
I can.
Do you assume that this is what he's talking about?
Yeah.
The IRS is launching an investigation on the SMU's athletic department. Early reports stated that SMU Athletics raised $159 million in fundraising during the 23-24 school year. We're now receiving information that SMU falsified these numbers. I presume this is what he's talking about from the account calling itself CFB News, Twitter handle at TCU Carter Boys. And when we hover, we see it is a parody account. So I would say no. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So
good on the TCU fans for,
yeah, like
pulling off a joke in July. Why not?
I mean, like, yeah, yeah. Maybe they want to get into the ACC. Maybe that's what it is. Let's see. The Panther says, man, ESPN hates Pitt. Projected 4 wins, 0.3% chance to win 11 games, 0.1% chance to win the ACC, and ranked Nate, the worst quarterback. Are we really in for another terrible season? Wondering your thoughts. Follows up and says, also predicted to finish second to last in the league, only ahead of Stanford. So I think this second to last in the league thing was like Bill Connolly, like S&P Plus, right? And he does a great job. I think his math is really sound. I appreciate the things that he puts value in, explosive plays and those kinds of things. But he also, when he's doing preseason projections, is putting a lot on returning production, right? And Pitt's missing it at the quarterback position, right? Like, it's a guy who started 2 games last year. And I think a lot of when you're looking at the preseason prediction that is based a whole lot on returning production, and you lost, you're changing quarterbacks, you lost your, top playmaking wide receiver, you lost all these corners, you lost all these defensive. I mean, like, Pitt has a lot of guys to replace, and I think we know that. But I think you look a little bit deeper and go beyond just sort of the numbers of the returning production. I think the quarterback play should be rather significantly better than it was a year ago. And so because of that, I think you have to set this aside because of how much value S&P Plus places on returning production. I'm not saying Pitt's going to win the ACC, but I think they're going to finish better than, what would that be, 16th?
16th.
Is that what next to last would be? 16th? I think they're going to do better than that, right? And I assume you would feel the same.
Yeah. I mean, I appreciate Bill Collin. I can't even say his name, but I think it's a little antiquated. I mean, just because the transfer portal is so big now, like, every college football team is so different from year to year that if your whole model is based on returning production, I mean, everyone's returning production is a little skewed. I mean, there's so many, like, everyone has, like, you look at the transfer portal rankings, like, Pitt brought in what, like 15 guys this year? Like, some teams brought in 30. Like, so how is S&P Plus really accounting for all that? So, like, I think it's a valuable tool to use, like, maybe like after the first couple games, whenever you start like seeing the percentages of this team can win the league, this team can make the playoffs. Like, that's when I start paying attention to those rankings. But like right now in July, I don't know. I mean, college football has changed so much since those like rankings started. They were great for a while, but I don't put a lot of stock into them right now.
And I think I saw him say one time, like earlier this offseason, he was like, I've been wrestling with what to do with returning production when you're talking about the transfers coming from the FCS level. And I think he was like, I've decided I'm just going to use like half production or something, like half. And I'm like, that's incredibly arbitrary. Like, just half. Here's my like incredibly specific and detailed algorithm. And we're just going to take credit for half of these guys' production because they came from, like, do you have some sort of correlation that FCS production typically relates to like 50% of FBS production? Like, and so at that point I was like, the preseason. But I mean, once you get a few games in and you have data on how teams are scoring and how they're defending and whether they're producing explosive plays, preventing explosive plays, giving up explosive plays, like then you've got something you can actually work with. Until then, maybe not so much. Josh Newark says Pitt versus Cal is October 12th. Clearly, the start time will be influenced by the Pirates' NLDS start time. Hey, I appreciate it. Epic Steel 8 says, why does the media think so low on Pitt and their record or anything after we are 2 years removed from an ACC championship and won the Sun Bowl against number 18 UCLA, I think a year ago? I mean, it's not just media. It's Pitt fans. Like Pitt fans, here's what Pitt fans are, right? We suck. 2021. Well, we kind of suck because we lost to Western Michigan. Then it's back to like, we suck. Darn it. Beat West Virginia. And then you get into the middle of the 2022 season. We suck. And then you got to be quiet because they win 5 games in a row. Last year was just a parade of screaming, we suck. It's just waiting for that opportunity to come. Any chance to say that 2021 was a fluke or it gets overshadowed by losses, like Pitt fans jump on it. And so it shouldn't be any surprise that people from outside kind of view it the same way. And then there's a certain reality of what Pitt has done. They haven't lost less than 3 games in like 40 some years. They've never had a season where they went undefeated against the non-conference schedule, and 2020 doesn't count because they only played 1 game that year. They've lost 5 or more games. What? All but 1 of Narduzzi's seasons? No, all but 2 of Narduzzi's seasons because they went 9-4 that year. So it's not hard to look at it and say that. But I'm with you, Epic Steel 8. I don't think 2021 was a fluke. I think 2021 was a product of a lot of things that Narduzzi had worked on for a long time. Was he aided and did he benefit from having a Heisman Trophy finals at quarterback? Absolutely. That helps. He needs to get back to that level of having good quarterback play. But I mean, I don't know. Yes, the national media will usually jump on that bandwagon, but it's not like Pitt fans don't as well,
Yeah, I mean, but just like on a plane, like they were bad last year, and usually, unless you like sign a crazy recruiting class and a crazy transfer at quarterback, like people are going to think you're bad again. Like whenever you're in college football, you have to fill the space as a college football writer. You have to write content. So your content right now is preseason stuff. So you're just going to look, okay, Pitt's 3-9. They have 5 starters back. The one kid only started 2 games at quarterback. Yeah, they're probably going to suck again. Like that is like the mind of someone on the outside. And like Pitt, for whatever reason, does not get the same like Virginia Tech automatic. You're ranked 23rd in the preseason every year. I don't know why Virginia Tech gets that love every year, but it doesn't matter who their coach is. It doesn't matter what record they had the year before. They're going to be preseason number 23. Yep. It doesn't get that same benefit.
Nope. Sure don't. Tommy Graham's 4 wins max.
Which 4, Tommy?
Yeah. Name them. And we're going to end the stream before you get a chance to. Name your 4 teams. Come on. Last one. Oh, I clicked on the wrong comment. Joey D says, who do you think Pitt will land in basketball out of Isaiah Dennis, Malik Thomas, Amari Evans, and Derek Dixon? What do you got, Jim?
I think Isaiah Dennis still needs to take his official visit, but I think things went really well with Amari Evans. Malik Thomas is tough to predict, but he went on that UConn official visit. I think the one website gave him a crystal ball to UConn, but here he is uncommitted. So I don't know. College basketball is so much different than college football recruiting. That's why we have our guy Houston, because for whatever reason it's just hard to track. So I don't know. I mean, I think Amari Evans is probably the most likely of the 4, but Houston might tell you something different.
Yeah, I agree. We'll see what happens. Keep an eye on all those things and see what they end up getting. But for now, Jim, we're going to go on a 2-week break here. No live show next week again, unless there's some extreme circumstances that cause it to happen, and
like they got a commitment from Malik Thomas.
that
would warrant it.
As you were like they got a commitment. I was like, no, we're not doing it just for a commitment. You're like, I'm like, we're not doing it just for a commitment. You're like, Malik Thomas. I'm like, yeah,
we would have to do one. Yeah.
Okay, probably have to do it for that. there could be extreme circumstances. We're not going to put that juju on anybody by mentioning any possible like extreme circumstances that could lead to a live stream. Let's just plan on not having a live stream. We'll have plenty of content though at Panther-Lair.com, plenty of videos right here on YouTube.com/Panther-Lair.com. So people will have things to do and keep themselves occupied. But Jim, enjoy your next week. Thanks everybody who tuned in. Jim, thanks for hanging out. Everybody, good rest of the night, good rest of the week. Check out the Morning Pit the next 2 days and the rest of the week and all that stuff. Enjoy your time. I'm going to have fun at the beach, and we will talk to you in 2 weeks for the Panther-Lair Show right here, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.